Good evening, folks. Thank you all for being here for our April board meeting. In particular, thank you, Kimberly and George, for joining us. Congratulations to Steve Bindall, who will be joining this table in June. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Really appreciate you and the Bindall family for being willing to do that. And we'll have some recognitions after that. Kids, you're welcome to stay, but you probably will want to leave, and so it should open some chairs after we do that. You folks see the amended agenda up for tonight. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we've seen the April 12, 2017 minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion about those? All in favor? Dr. Phillips.
Okay. My favorite part of the evening. Before I recognize Coach Davis, Josh, and Mac this evening, I wanted to take a moment just to introduce or welcome our teacher leaders. You all approved for us to have a teacher leader program in which teachers are learning to take things at a broader perspective of the work that we do. And so I've asked Jane Marie to introduce each of those that are here, and very pleased that they are.
Right. We're so happy that they're here tonight. We asked them to attend a board meeting in the next couple of months so that they can get that perspective, that balcony view. And I don't want to miss anybody. So with the teacher leaders, I know we have a lot of people standing, but could you kind of stand up and move forward? And because I know we have people down the hall. And we would like for you to introduce yourself and tell the board which school you're... I don't want to miss anybody because I know there were some people down the hall down there. Which
Denise,
school that you are with and what grade you teach?
All right, well, I'm Kristen Kavorek from Central, and I'm in the exceptional ed department, so I get to work with both 4th and 5th grade. And Kristen Stable, I'm at Central also, and I'm 5th grade.
Denise Brundage, I'm at the high school, and I'm special ed.
Heather Hurt, Central, 5th grade.
Anyone else?
I'm Brad Wagersback. I teach environmental science, UP, at the high school.
Okay. And we are very, very grateful for the work they are doing and joining us. This is above and beyond, and this is the quality of the work that they are doing and going to be able to take back to their schools and their departments. Those are, as I've used the term many times, game changers. They really are. So thank you all. Thank you for being here. Now, if Coach Davis and Josh Stevens and Max Smith, y'all come on up together.
All right, basketball.
Because is Coach Seegers here? Is Jeff Seegers with us this evening? He may not have been able to be here, but I asked him, as I often do, because he knows you best, just to write a little something about you. So you all will just have to bear with me as I read it. But I want to honor you in the right way, and so I've asked him just to send me a little bit about you, and then anything else you'd like to say, I'd be happy for you too. Coach Davis was chosen as Alabama Sports Writer Association's 7A Coach of the Year. In his first year as our head coach, Coach Davis led our basketball team to the Final Four. His Rebels defeated Hoover to reach this year's semifinal game against Auburn. While coming up a little short against Auburn, Coach Davis and the Rebels made all of Vestavia proud. In recognition of the season and the work that Coach Davis and his Rebels had, the Alabama Sports Writer named him the 7A Coach of the Year. While this is a great honor, those of us, he says, who know Coach Davis and the Rebels knew what kind of coach he was long before he was named 7A Coach of the Year. The lessons that he has taught our student athletes will last far longer than a basketball season may. We are so proud of you and so grateful for the work that you've done, and we are thrilled that you have decided to be a Rebel. So thank you for being here. Max Smith, Alabama Sports Writers Association 7A All-State Team and the All-Tournament Team. As we have already stated, our basketball team had an outstanding year. They were the epitome of the definition of team. In recognition for the season he had, Max Smith was named the Alabama Sports Writers to their 7A All-State Team. Max was also named to the Final Four All-Tournament Team. These are great individual honors, but I'm sure that Mac would tell you that the awards represent all of his teammates. The unselfishness of Mac and the rest of the team really led to the successful year that they had. Congratulations to you, Max Smith, and to the rest of the basketball team for such a great honor. We're so proud of you. And Josh Stevens, winner of the Bryant Jordan Achievement Award 7A Division. The Bryant Jordan Student Athlete Program is one of a kind scholarship program created by the Alabama High School Athletic Association and the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. The program recognizes athletes based on ability and achievement. Josh was named the 7A Bryant Jordan Achievement winner. He was first selected from all of the nominees to represent our district, which is made up of all high schools from Shelby County, Jefferson County, Tuscaloosa, and Walker. Earlier this month, at the Bryant Jordan banquet, Josh was selected as the 7A Achievement winner. While we watch Josh and are amazed at his accomplishments, he feels it is nothing special. His attitude from a very young age has been that there is nothing he can't do. What really makes him special is that he doesn't think there's anything special about what he does. He is an inspiration to everyone around him, and we are all better just by getting to watch him compete. And if you haven't seen his video that has been released, you've got to see it. It is incredibly impressive. We are so proud of you, Josh, and you truly are an inspiration to every single one of us. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for letting us honor you this evening. Yep. And then I'll let Mike Donaldson, we have a group of students with FBLA, and I've asked him if he will present those recognitions.
As you can see, nothing pleases us more as a system than to be able to recognize and celebrate the achievements of our students and our teachers. At this time, we do have a group of students, members of the Vestavia Hills High School FBLA, that's Future Business Leaders of America. That is the student organization that is associated with the business education program. If you guys would come on up and line up through here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask each one of you to introduce yourself, tell your name, tell your event that you competed at the state competition earlier this month, and tell us how you placed there. And before they start, this group, large group, good-looking group too, this group will be representing us at the National FBLA competition in Anaheim, California later this summer. So if you would start here and just tell us your name, your event, and how you placed at the state competition.
Okay, I'm Evan Palmer. I competed in website design and I got first place.
I'm Chad Bryan. I competed in network concepts and I placed fourth place.
I'm Rahul Parikh. I competed in computer applications and I got second place.
I'm Noah Coffin. I competed in e-business and I got first place.
I'm Mallory Moore and I competed in e-business and I placed first place.
I'm Sarah Dow. I competed in business calculations and I got first place. And I was also elected Alabama District 2 Vice President.
I'm Kay McGoodwine, and I competed in Future Business Leader and got second place.
I'm Noah Adams. I competed in Information Technology. I placed third place.
I'm Jack Pryor, and I competed in making a video game and I got second place.
I'm Zach Fulmer. I competed in business plan and I got third place.
I'm Blake Garris. I competed in business plan and I got third place.
I'm Hattie O'Tan, and I also competed in business plan and got third place.
I'm Walter John. I competed in cybersecurity and I got first place.
I'm Daniel Cotton. I competed in economics and I placed second.
And naturally, they couldn't do this with a great group of advisors / teachers that are in the back here. I'm sure they're taking photos and tweeting away right now. But join me in congratulating all of these.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Congratulations. In addition to this, and students, you do not have to stay. Please do not feel that you have to, but you are more than welcome to. If you're going to enter the world of business, maybe you want to stay. No, I'm kidding. You don't really. We had the privilege today, of course, of hosting at the high school the senior awards, and just the level of work that our students are recognized for, not only at the state level but nationally, is, as I always say, incredibly impressive. And so it was a great day. It's a very long assembly for that reason, because so many of our students receive scholarship for the work that they do and the efforts that have been made during their high school career. So it's a good time, a lot of fun. All right, I'm going to move on to financial statement. So, Mr. Boehner.
And unlike the fun stuff you did today, this isn't fun stuff, so everybody, I'm just going to go through it quickly. Financial information in your packet is for the month of March. Happy to report local revenue is at 95.7% of budget. That means we're approximately $730,000 away from hitting our total budget projection for the year. Expenditures are at 51.3% of budget. Last year at this time they were at 51.15%, so we are tracking exactly where we want to be on the expenditures. Again, we're $731,000 away from meeting our revenue goal, and it's anticipated that collections for the remaining fiscal year from April through September is going to be somewhere about an additional $2 million coming in. So we should go through and collect about 1.3 or so million more than what we had originally budgeted.
That's great.
That's great news. All the bank accounts have been reconciled at this time. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you.
Greg, I think you mentioned it and I just missed it. The percentage, the comparison of the percentages from where we were last year to this year in terms of revenues?
In terms of revenue, actually last year at this time we were at 91.17% of revenue. We're at 95% right now. And after February, March time period, most of the ad valorem we have coming in now deals with auto tax, auto tags. That's fairly consistent from year to year, and last year we collected like an additional $2.2 million from April to September, so I feel good that we will collect at least $2 million between now and then.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? I recommend that the board approve the financial statement for March 2017. Board bank accounts have been reconciled through March 2017.
You've heard Sheila's recommendation concerning the financial statement. Is there a motion to approve? Second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Item 6, consent items. I recommend the board approve the following consent items: out-of-state or overnight trips, and that's it.
Sheila's made this recommendation concerning consent items. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7A, I recommend that the board approve the low bid from Axon Industries, LLC, in the amount of $154,800 for landscape maintenance as submitted.
Sheila's made this recommendation concerning the Axon Industries bid. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do we have any previous relationship with Axon?
We do. They have done our work in the past. We decided to pull this out of being managed by Latham Associates and manage this directly ourselves. So we bid it out, sent out an RFP. They were the low bidder, and but they are the current company that does the work for us.
And I will point out, originally, when the bid that we had just replaced was done, it actually, total bid cost was $161,000 approximately. This one came in at $154,800. Big difference is this bid now includes the 40-some-odd acre berry property, which is actually about another $47,000 in cost from what the bid calculations were. So they have came back very strong and presented a very good bid for us.
So $6,000 less, plus a 40-acre campus to take care of.
Right. So we feel it's going to be a very good bid for us.
Good. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
So the next item is that I recommend the board approve the contract between Axon Industries LLC and the board in the amount of $154,800 for landscape maintenance as submitted.
Dr. Phillips has made this recommendation concerning the contract with Axon. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Boone, you drafted this probably.
I did, and I recommend it from a legal standpoint.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Item 7C, I recommend the board approve the low bid from Battle Miller Construction Corporation in the amount of $796,700 for additions and alterations to Vestavia Hills Elementary West Package C multi-needs renovations as submitted.
You've heard Sheila's recommendation concerning this bid from Miller Construction. Is there a motion to approve that? Second. Any questions or discussion?
The only discussion I would add is that we are really excited to begin moving forward on some of the renovations at West. This is long overdue. This is a space we've discussed that is difficult at best to manage right now with the way that it is pieced together. This will offer up a significant amount of more of effectiveness in the way that the department runs. It's going to be a very good thing. There were a lot of temporary walls, things of that nature that just have not proven to be effective. So we're very excited we're going to be able to move forward with this.
Okay. Kim?
Yes, Kim?
Yes.
Very excited.
Good.
It's about time. Right, Kim?
Just great.
Good. All in favor?
Okay, so I recommend that the board approve the contract between the board and Battle Miller Construction Corporation in the amount of $796,700 for additions and alterations to Vestavia Hills Elementary West Package C multi-needs renovations as submitted.
You've heard Sheila's recommendation concerning this contract with Miller Construction. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Boone, you've reviewed that contract?
Yes, sir, now I recommend it from a legal standpoint.
Thank you. And our board management folks, you guys are pleased with that as well?
And Lathan has been in the design part of this
Sean.
for quite some time.
Sean, you're on board too. Any other questions or discussion? All right. All in favor?
Item 7E, I recommend the board approve the budget amendment as submitted, please.
Sheila's made this recommendation concerning the budget amendment. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Greg, to explain why we have an amendment. This amendment is to go through and budget additional revenue from the state. We're receiving $233,000 in what they call current units funds. This helps school systems that have a significant growth over the prior year, which is what they use to determine funding levels for. Helps provide a little bit more money for the current year instead of having to wait a full fiscal year to get additional funds to help deal with the growth. The other part of it is the legislature set up a program in the last year. It's called the Alabama Head Act. It's for technology funds. There's an application process that we went through. We were awarded $108,000 in funds to be used for basically wireless needs in the schools. So we have those. We have to submit a budget where we can spend those funds. So we're reimbursed after we... Yeah, on the Alabama Head Act, we are being reimbursed because we had expenditures that already qualified. Current units money is new money coming in. So.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Item 7F, I recommend the board approve the textbook committee as submitted.
Sheila's made this recommendation concerning the textbook committee. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion?
The only discussion would be this is for science materials textbooks that are needed in our classrooms, and we need a committee in order to follow the procedures outlined by the state in the selection process.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? I don't know if any of these folks are here, but thank you for the people who are serving on the textbook committee.
That's extra time and hours and study and helping us get that in line.
No kidding.
All right. So next, we're going to move on to the facilities alignment recommendation and the facilities update. I am very excited that we are here at this point. This has been a long time in planning and discussion. I would be remiss if I didn't thank everyone involved in the discussions that we've had, our community, our parents, the input, our city leaders who have helped us greatly as we have had these discussions. Matt Adams is here, and we're grateful for the work he did in assisting us through the bond issue process. I stated on the day that we found out that the Jefferson County 1-cent sales tax was going to be reinstated, that it was a great day. This is a great day for Vestavia Hills City Schools to be able to plan and to methodically look at what we have, and have been able to be projected to have worked with HPM, Lathan, and so many others to make this day happen, to allow us to have a plan that we can expand with and make some plans that, whether they occur now or later, they're on the radar so that these plans do not get lost. And I think the process has proven to be a very strong one. And so what I've done is asked Greg Ellis is going to do the first part of the presentation, and then I will do the second piece of that.
And Greg, before you get started, just my plan for tonight as we talk about this is Greg and Brennan and Sheila, you all will make your presentation. Sheila, you'll, at the end, I assume, will make recommendations.
Correct.
Then I will ask if there's a motion to approve the recommendations. We'll then, before we vote, we'll open it up for questions and discussion from us. Then we'll open it up for folks out there to ask questions as you see questions that need to be asked. We will be consistent with, I guess, our rule of thumb of 3 minutes per person as they get up and ask questions, and we'll try not to be repetitive. Then we'll probably finalize with questions from us, and then we'll take the vote. Greg, sorry, thank you.
No problem. Okay. There we go. Okay, so as Dr. Phillips stated, it's been several months since when we started this process to where we are today. So for everyone in the room, we wanted to go back and kind of recap what we've done, what we've looked at, and how we've arrived at where we are today. So to begin, the first step of this process, beginning in November of last year, was to begin a community engagement process. This started with parent surveys that were sent out via email to gather information. This was followed by a series of community meetings. Dr. Phillips held several meetings throughout the community in all areas of our city, throughout the school system. The intent of this process was to listen first and understand. We wanted to hear what the concerns were. We wanted to understand where the challenges may lie. And we wanted to find out what was important to the community of Vestavia Hills. Some of the feedback that was received as a combination of the parent meetings, of the community meetings, and the surveys were, as you can see here, a general concern at all levels in our school system of overcrowding and class sizes. A concern of inadequate non-traditional spaces. As we define non-traditional spaces, those are non-classroom centric spaces. Those are arts, music, dance, etc. Safety concerns that were prevalent at all of our campuses.
whether that is dealing with carpool, whether that is access to and from playgrounds throughout each of our campuses, issues that we had to deal with throughout the facilities that were being brought to our attention. The next was the condition of the facilities. We certainly have, and we all know that we have some aging facilities throughout our system. So understanding what that condition was. Again, talking about our parking and our carpool. One of the feedback topics that was raised was the discussion of a potential second high school. Was that a reality? Was that a necessity? And how would that be factored into the process? Again, going back to fine arts, facilities, and athletics, looking at those across the system, and then finally looking at the current zoning and looking at where children reside today and where they attend school. So those were a lot of the topics that we got from the community feedback process that went over several weeks and months. So coming out of that, that led us to sit down and say, what do we need to try and achieve in terms of goals moving forward? The top goal that we would aspire to is a sustainable and long-term plan for Vestavia and our school system. We wanted to anticipate the growth and understand how the overcrowding was impacting the system, but at each individual campus, and not only just where it is today, but where it is going in the future. The next is to understand the alignment, the continuity, and the unity. This was a topic that was raised as part of the community meetings. There was a committee put together, a team, and that was one of the goals that was desired to be addressed throughout the course of this process. The next was to maintain our class sizes, to understand what is important to us and what we did not want to lose going forward as we plan and look at how the growth of the system occurs. One of the goals was not to lose the culture and the personality of our schools. We have a strong school system. We're very proud of our academic traditions. The next was to look at making this as simple in terms of timeline and transition, because every school throughout the system has specific needs and would have some level of impact regardless of any potential combination of projects that may have to occur. Preschool, having an understanding of how we approach that now and how we approach that in the future had to be taken into consideration. It was gold not to overlook that throughout the course of this process. And finally, not to lose programs as a result. Protection of the programs and the aspects of our school system that are most important to us are the programs that are applied directly to our children. So as we understood that as our framework, that led us into the analysis process. And the first step of any analysis process is to understand the parameters and the facts of where we are and the data that we have to work with. The first was to make sure we understood what the funding mechanism for this program could be and what it was. We worked closely with Matt to understand where that was, worked closely with Greg to understand exactly what funds were available. The next was truly, because of the growth of the system, to engage with Cooperative Strategies, who has been with us at several meetings now, to do, really I think for the first time for the system, a comprehensive study of enrollment projections and subdivision analysis to know where our growth is, where our growth is going, and where it is coming from specifically in our community. That is looking not only at the overall, but at each individual school, each individual neighborhood, and each individual street within our city. The next was to truly understand what the capacity at each of our schools is today. In order to understand how the impact of growth and the number of students feeding into each individual school would have an impact on that school, we needed to understand what they could currently hold with a maximum class size of 19-to-1 was our factor to help us determine what our capacity was across the system. Those factors and information and data led us to beginning to develop options. Options that looked at how they fit within our budget in terms of funding available for the program, in terms of how they addressed capacity at the individual schools, and how they would impact the individual growth for the neighborhoods and the areas throughout the community as they go forward. And finally, we needed to make sure that we understood if you add or build, it has an operations and a maintenance impact to each individual facility and the system overall. So working closely with Greg to make sure we were partnered to understand how this would impact the overall ability to manage and maintain the system. So to touch on a couple of things, and I'm not going to go into finite detail on all of these. We've talked about these many times. But in our last meeting, Tracy Richter with Cooperative Strategies came and recapped the original enrollment projection, the updated enrollment projection, and how the subdivision yield analysis that they performed for us affected our overall enrollment projections going forward. So across the system today, as you can see, we have approximately 7,445 students. And in the year 2026-27 school year, we anticipate to grow to 8,415 students across the system. Now, if you've attended or watched the videos of previous board meetings, I think one thing to note is we have followed the recommended growth for the 31 corridor for Cahaba Heights. However, the subdivision yield analysis in Liberty Park led us to believe that a higher growth projection should be anticipated there due to planned development that we know is already approved and will be executed over the next several years. So, the next slide is a recap of what we talked about last month or earlier this month. In discussion of the four options that are on the table, and we'll talk about those individually, essentially this is where we stand to date against the overall funding, what has been expended to date as of our last meeting, what the remaining costs are, and what that yields in terms of an over-under of what that does for us. So option one is a K3-4-5 alignment along the 31 corridor, a 6-8 middle school alignment, introduction of an academy program at Central, and maintaining the current Vestavia High School as a 9-12. Option two realigns our elementary schools to K5 for all elementary schools across the system. This would maintain a 6-8 alignment for middle school. It still introduces the academy program for Central and retains the 9-12 at the current high school. Option three is the K3-4-5 alignment along the 31 corridor. Liberty Park and Cahaba Heights stay as they are currently aligned at K5. 6 through 9 would be introduced at Liberty Park and at the Berry campus. This is in an effort to alleviate the potential growth at the high school and the current overcrowding. This option does not include an academy. Option four reintroduces the academy concept to further alleviate overcrowding and class sizes at the high school. And it reintroduces the K-5 elementary alignment across the system. So this again just looks at some of the pros and cons of each individual one. I don't think I'm going to go back through each individual pro and con like we did in our last meeting. The other thing to note in these next 4 slides, option 1 and option 2 do not sufficiently address the anticipated growth at the high school level. It leaves us with an incomplete answer to how we address the high school growth. The operational cost impacts are approximately $1.7 million annually. We'll work through those details with Mr. Maynor. Option 2 really addresses the K-5 alignment, and the operational impacts are roughly the same. Option 3 begins to address how high school capacities could be managed with removing the 9th grade and approaching that from a 9th grade at Berry and a 9th grade at Liberty Park. In this, the operational impact is approximately $2.2 million annually. The difference here is this does not have the academy program, which would further offset and help with expected growth at the high school level. And finally, option 4 is option 3, but reintroducing the academy. This sufficiently, over the next 10 years, manages anticipated growth at the current high school based on the projection values that we've received from cooperative strategies, looking at the current capacity of the high school. The annual operation cost is approximately $2.7 million. Now, as I mentioned in options 1 and options 2, at this time those do not have a viable solution within the current funds that we have available to address growth across the system at every individual school. At the high school, we have been asked in previous meetings to study solutions that could offset or respond to the anticipated growth at the high school. So we have 2 studies. These are not included in options 1 or 2. These would be in addition to option 1 and option 2. Study number 1 for Vestavia High School, the current campus, as we talked about the last time, would be a phased approach to address the loss of parking in order to add approximately 150,000 square foot of additional classroom and instructional space, to renovate interior spaces as well, and to address some athletic expansion that needs to occur. Again, this would have to be phased in and would not be done at all at one time. This would be approximately a $50+ million capital cost, and the additional annual operational cost would be approximately $900,000. The second study that we... Yes.
One question. On that option, what does that get us to? Did you tell us the capacity that would get us to in terms of enrollment?
The enrollment on this, I don't have that right off the top of my head. Brian, do you have that in your data?
The 150,000 square feet was kind of the number developed for anticipated growth at the high school to get you all the way through 10 years. So this would get you through, I believe it's 2,900 students expected at the high school through year 10.
Okay.
So the second topic we were asked to study was the potential for a second high school for the Liberty Park area. At the time of this study, the number of 1,000 student capacity for this high school was the projection. In order to build a 1,000 student high school, you would need approximately 40 acres of usable land. The high school would cost approximately $50 million for the building itself. The athletics would be in addition to that, but these do not include land acquisition costs. The land is not currently within the system. It's not been identified at this point, so there would be additional cost for land acquisition. The timeline for building a new high school of this magnitude for site selection and due diligence would be approximately a 6-month period. Design would be approximately a year, and construction could take approximately 18 to 24 months. So as we looked further at this study, there's a few things that we need to understand in terms of capacity and how that ties to the demographic information that we received. So currently, looking at the projected growth in the Liberty Park, Cahaba Heights areas, looking at the subdivision yield analysis, looking at the housing permits, and the number of years for completion of the planned development in Cahaba Heights, Liberty Park High School would not be at capacity until at least 2026 or 2027 school year. The build out of new homes in Liberty Park, based on looking at building permits and building starts and the average and the trends over the last 5 years, would project that the build out would take approximately 17 years. And Tracy walked through all of that last month or earlier this month. Again, the current funds available to the school system do not support the ability to fund a second high school within the current program and address the K-8 issue capacities at all of the other facilities within the system. Operational cost would be approximately $8 million annually. Debt service would be approximately $4 million annually. And as you can see, for a 1,000 student high school, for the first many years, this would be an underutilized facility. The next study that we were asked to look at in response to many questions was the development and the viability of an academies facility at Central. And I walked through this earlier in the month, but essentially the approach for academies is to help offset growth at the high school, but also to introduce additional new programs that may not exist in our system to date. For an anticipated capital investment of $5 million and an annual operation cost of $500,000, and assuming that the growth of this would take time, approximately 10% is where we have estimated growth and how that would alleviate the high school capacity. Over time, the cost here is quite significant per student in comparison to the ability to alleviate the high school campus at this time. So we've been asked to look at how that factored in. So with that, that is the process and how we have been asked to review the data that we've collected, sort through the options, and try and answer what and how these additional options in total, the original 4, address the issues within the system currently.
Greg, like Sheila said, to you and Brennan, thank you for helping us as you have, being the professionals in this area, the guidance that you've given, the data you provided, the data synthesis that you provided has been instrumental in getting us to this position, helping us cast the net wide at the beginning, and then remove things from the table to get us to tonight, so thank you. One quick question on the program cost and funds available slide.
Yes.
That slide shows that we've spent 11.5.
Correct.
But we've got more than 11.5 committed, if I'm not mistaken, on construction that's going on at Cahaba Heights, at Vestavia West, Vestavia East. So
that's correct.
That 11.5 is what's been spent, but there's a larger number in terms of what's been committed, assuming we would go forward with.
That's correct. The projects that are under contract and committed that are still to complete.
Right.
We didn't put that in this slide, but yes, that would take that number slightly lower for funds available today. Correct.
And when we're finished with this portion, Brennan will go over those yet again about where we are on all of those projects.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for him? All right. I'll click through them unless there's other questions.
Sure. Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
And I wish Tracy's not here, right?
He's not, no.
Okay. Can we go to the enrollment slide real quick? And I think he addressed this, I just don't recall what he said.
Yeah.
So if you look at K through 4 in the 2017-18 out to 26-27, they all seem to be declining, right?
Yes, there was
they are.
Yeah, what Tracy explained at our last meeting was, I forget the exact year, but there was an anomaly in the birth rate that occurred that's somewhat unexplained.
So that's the 2021
right.
First grade where they dropped from 631 to 417?
Correct.
And that has like a waterfall effect?
It has a ripple effect when you look at, when you factor the live birth rate in to any enrollment projection. It directly has an impact to the enrollment at the kindergarten level. And then you have the survival cohort ratio that looks at how many students move from first grade to second grade to third grade, and that is part of the math that projects how many students will move from one grade to another as they move throughout the system. So when there's an anomaly in the birth rate that affects the kindergarten, that anomaly, even though there's still a survival cohort ratio that's applied, that anomaly still carries forward all the way through the system until those children graduate from high school.
So we have a rising trend 6, 8, 9, 12, and a declining trend K5. So it's not safe to assume that 6, 8, 9, 12 in years 11 on could decline because we have that anomaly. I'm trying to, he himself says he doesn't put a lot of faith in those longer term numbers.
He has to factor that in, and Ann and everyone that works in Tracy's company has to factor that into the equations that they use to make the projections. So he's factored in the anomaly, he's factored in the growth in enrollment at various age groups. What you see here is the summary district-wide. What's behind this is looking specifically at the growth going into East Elementary, the growth going into West Elementary. At every single school within our system, we looked and broke this down to understand at a finite level how children move throughout our system, and based on the information we used, how they would be projected to move through the system in terms of growth. So I think it's been factored in to the best of our abilities at this point.
It's another reason why he suggested that we, of course, keep a close watch on the trends to see if they truly transpire the way that they are projecting in these numbers.
Right, it just makes me nervous to commit to some big investment for 10 years out. If we think 11 through 15 years out, there's going to be a declining trend because Liberty Park is built out, or because no one has babies in 2021, or whatever the rationale. It says it on the paper. Okay.
And so when you were talking about the subdivision yield analysis in Liberty Park, because of their plans, it led us to a higher growth projection.
Yes.
So that's kind of on the conservative side, right? That we're saying
Yes.
we could be over projecting that.
Yes. So in the community engagement process, one of the things that we heard very clearly at the outset was planned growth and development in Liberty Park is a significant concern, which led us to, if that's a significant concern for our community, we need to understand that as at a finite level. So the process of getting the subdivision yield analysis gave us the data, and analyzing that and understanding how that was put together, the inputs that they received from Liberty Park Joint Venture, from the City of Vestavia, from Jefferson County, from all of the different entities that they've spoken with and engaged with, we did go with a conservative approach to growth in Liberty Park that was informed from the subdivision yield and also from the historical growth over the years.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
We may have more, Greg.
I'm sure.
Go far. Okay, with all that being said, I actually have a 9-piece recommendation. I am known for long meetings, and this is probably my lengthiest recommendation to date. But I'll talk through each piece, and then I'll summarize the recommendation, and then if there's any further discussion, I will have some other things for you to consider before we move on. But I will start with the first. To contract with cooperative strategies to monitor trends and demographics on an annual or biannual basis. That was the recommendation when Tracy Richter was here last, particularly as we see some differences maybe a bit in the in the study of the projected enrollment that we see, and to ensure that those things, we are watching those carefully through their lens as whether or not they're truly articulated in the growth that we have projected to see. Secondly, to contract with cooperative strategies to study the impact of rezoning on the community and to determine if common alignment of elementary schools is necessary to accommodate the anticipated growth over the next 5 years. I am recommending that we move to a K-5 model educationally, and what we know are best practices for us in so many different areas. Having a K-5 alignment among our schools, our elementary schools, is the right thing to do. However, I would like to have that additional data point from cooperative strategies to just help affirm that our community is prepared for this, where those rezoning lines would be drawn. Rather than making the decision up front, we're going to do it now, figure out what the rezone is. I'd rather have what a rezone plan might look like and what that may be as we prepare to move in that direction to ensure that we have all of those moving pieces and parts in line additionally. We wouldn't have known that having not necessarily worked with them and finishing the study with them, but I feel like it's the right thing to do. And so I'm recommending that we move into the next phase in contracting with them in order to help us through that process as well. Proven the work that they have done, I think they are the company to assist us in doing that. We appreciate the fact that HPM has created that partnership along with us in moving that forward. Number 3 is to begin renovation of the Berry campus to accommodate grades 6 through 7 with the middle school model and grades 8 through 9 with a junior high model. I've been saying all along that because of the way our teachers go about their work, the way we design teaching and learning in the school system, the things that we value at the middle school level, an example would be 6th grade teachers being in that mix with 7th and 8th graders, that is something that we value, but I also think we can get the best of both worlds, and we understand how to move forward into a junior high model for our 8th and 9th graders as they prepare for high school. Next, I would say in the fall of 2019 that we would move forward with Central and moving back campus to Pizitz. Again, we will be studying the rezoning and the effects that may have, so that may have to be tweaked a bit to include K-5, or I'm hopeful and should move forward, but at the time we know that we are going to move away from the Central campus, and those students will go to Pizitz in the future on that campus, and so and we believe that we can do this by fall of 2019. Also in fall of 2019, number 5, move Pizitz Middle School to the Berry campus. Number 6, by fall of 2019, move the 9th grade students zoned for the Highway 31 corridor to the Berry campus. Number 7, by fall of 2019, move the 9th grade students zoned for Liberty Park to Liberty Park Middle. Number 8, fall of 2019, realign LPMS to grades 6 through 7, again the middle school model, and grades 8 through 9, the junior high model. And then 9, fall 2019, change VHHS grade structure to 10 through 12. One of the things that our community has asked for is a timeline. I have talked with HPM and with Lathan and Associates. We feel like this is doable. We will be immediately beginning the conversations and the work as early as next week, pending your approval of the recommendation, and begin working at how exactly will all of that work. Getting started on the Berry campus naturally is time sensitive, and it's critical that we begin the renovations and the planning for that, the design for that, as quickly as we possibly can. So in summary, I am recommending that the board approve a modified option 4. Vestavia Voice would call it option 5. Some would call it the Corona model. But plans for the K5, sorry Nancy, I had to. I didn't come up with that. I did not. Plans for the K5 realignment will be made following a rezoning study. This recommendation also removes academies as a part of the facilities discussion. And then again, once we have further discussion, I want to do some follow-up comments as well.
So Sheila, we'll, and I'll ask Mr. Boone this in a second, but we'll go back to your recommendations, ask questions about those in particular. But before we begin those discussions and those questions, Mr. Boone, just your advice. We see Sheila's got a slate of recommendations of 9 recommendations. Should I accept a motion for the entire slate?
Yes, sir. Okay. That's our recommendation.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to? We're going to talk about that. Is there a motion to accept the slate of recommendations from Dr. Phillips?
So you're asking for a motion and then we're going to discuss?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nancy.
Second.
All right. So now we'll discuss.
Discussion or questions?
Right.
Yes, that's correct.
So Sheila, help us with the 9th grade at Berry and 9th grade staying at Liberty Park in terms of extracurriculars and opportunities. What's the plan? I know there are a lot of details that would need to be worked out.
There certainly are, and those are the things I will talk to, the operational management decisions that will have to be made as we move forward. Certainly the planning for those would have to begin immediately. As I have said many times, I have met multiple times with with Jeff Seegers, with Tyler Burgess, with the coaches. In one form or another, I've met with Jarrell Horton at the high school. I have been in communication with the middle school fine arts folks about how we would manage those particular things. We certainly would have to make arrangements for transportation as needed. I would stand firm in my commitment that, well, first of all, we have to do something about the population at the high school. So we have actually talked different ways. My heart is a little bit ripped out because academies didn't kill 2 birds with 1 stone. That is a direction we need to move in academically, but it doesn't solve the facilities alignment issue. So we're about to put that in a different context, but something that is very important. Thus the reason for looking at that. The other piece of this is that, you know, in order to remove enough students from the high school for the anticipated growth, what do you do? Well, the obvious is to move 9th grade away. We know we do not want a 9th grade standalone campus. That communication has been shared in multiple ways. The value of the students as far as the leadership is concerned and their ability to learn from others. It's important to us that we maintain them and as a part of a completer program than just one standalone. Most school systems who create 9th grade academies do it for the purpose of what I would call, and many places call, turnaround schools, where the graduation rate is incredibly low and they are just trying to keep kids in school. Because ninth grade is a pivotal year, they will create programs from that. What we also know is that many of these programs are not successful. They end up going back just as late as this week. I spoke with Hoover to have them share their story with me and why they went back. It is very difficult when you have a standalone grade in a separate building, it is very difficult to philosophically, if you will, implement the academics that you expect the, students to have and create a culture of learning that is not different than what you would have either at your middle school, junior high, or at your high school. And we feel we can marry all of those programs to make sure that our students receive what they want. The concern has come up about, well, you know, we're concerned about the equitability and teaching and learning at both of our middle schools, and yet you're going to suggest that we might do that with ninth grade? Absolutely. Again, as I have said many times, it is our responsibility to make certain that the opportunities that our students have are equitable and that the experiences are more alike than different. You've heard us say that many times, not only in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, or in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but again, even in our elementary schools, as I have mentioned many times. I feel that this is the best answer in light even of the concern that, you know, we want a second high school at Liberty Park. This is an effort to possibly, when time will allow and the enrollment shows up as it should and the development occurs as it does and as finances will support, a movement in that direction. And we have the space. Utilizing that space versus building a standalone or renovating a standalone or even adding a larger wing to the Berry campus, this solves that issue even financially. So I hope I answered your question sufficiently, and that was another 9-point PowerPoint slide.
You did. Just as a specific example, a ninth grade football player at Liberty Park or a ninth grade football player at Berry would play at the high school.
That's correct. There is a commitment, as I have stated before, that the programs that are built, the way that they are designed, whether it's athletics or fine arts or any other of our competitive teams, or even non-athletic, non-fine art teams that we have, in which our ninth graders would play, it is important to us as a community. The teachers have shared that with me. Students have shared that with me, that they want to remain a part of those programs. And I value that, and I trust that, and that's where that decision has got to come from. We've stated that many, many times. Maintaining what we have developed in our programs because they are so successful and not losing any momentum that has been built in these programs. Other questions?
Sheila, is it possible to change the recommendation to do the number one on an annual basis as opposed to or biannual?
Well, I put both, and the reason that I put both is because they recommended that I put both. Their cooperative strategies is not convinced that we need to do it annually. Based on what we have studied about ourselves and the community and the population, they are not convinced that it requires an annual evaluation, but we could. I mean, that's y'all's. That's
well, it would give me more comfort to monitor it annually going forward, given some of the gyration on the farther years. According to the HPM stuff, it'll take about 42 months from start to finish to build a new high school if we were to do that. And so, you know, if you have some crazy movement in some of these projections out 6, 7, 8 years, to me, you know, a 3.5-year time frame to build warrants at least an annual look, even if it's on a limited basis.
Well, this just gives us the option to do.
That's fine.
I mean, we would actually, we would clarify in the contract whether we wanted that annually or biannually. This is just my recommendation that we do it, that we enter into a contract.
To either do it annually or biannually.
On the contract with the cooperative strategies to talk about impact of rezoning. Could you give us a little bit of an idea about maybe the timeline of what that might look like?
I'm going to let Craig and Brennan talk to that because they've actually talked with them about this.
Yep.
This very
So,
thing.
one of the subspecialties of cooperative strategies is helping K-12 school systems across the country look at zoning and alignment issues. So, at this time, what we're asking them to give us a proposal for would be looking specifically along the 31 corridor where the growth issues between the current east, west, and central campus, how those could be worked to align with potentially a K-5 elementary alignment to occur for east, west, and Pizitz as K-5 schools. That would be specifically what we would ask them to assist us with.
And would that involve, I mean, would we do more focus groups or?
It can be focus
like
group,
Is
it can be engagement and community discussions. They also, the benefit that we have is in their process of the enrollment projections and the subdivision yield analysis, we know where every student lives within the school system geographically. We have the GIS information. So it allows us to have the maps, the layers, the information to look at that very clearly and inform the community throughout the process to make sure everyone is aware of exactly what's being considered, how that would affect, how that would be implemented, and how it would be phased in according to the plan that Dr. Phillips is looking at.
Other questions?
Housing ninth grade at Liberty Park Middle and at Berry won't, and I think Tyler may have answered this question last month, if I'm not mistaken, that it doesn't affect the classification of the high school.
No, it does not. The Athletic Association takes into account grades 10, 11, and 12 when they determine classifications. So, for instance, Mount Brook, they hold their classification and they don't consider their junior high at all in that,
Gotcha.
in that calculation.
Greg, just in thinking about costs of building a ninth grade wing at Berry, my recollection is we've discussed the current footprint of Berry is what would house 3 grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I mean, at least the
Correct.
current structural, the building footprint. It would be an additional wing to house the ninth grade.
Correct.
Compare the price of building that ninth grade wing versus one of the slides that you had of trying to add a building and the domino effect that it would cause at the high school to increase the capacity there.
Right. So at the high school, the classroom addition to accommodate the 150,000 square feet, to increase the classroom space, to accommodate additional students and growth over the years. The classroom component of that is part of the $50 million. But the thing that you have to look at is the location of that is on current parking. So how we address where that parking is replaced, you know, it increases the cost. So that's how we get to the $50+ million phased in over multiple construction projects back to back to back to back over a couple of year period of time.
And I'm sure we could back out just on probably one of the slides in months past how much the building of a ninth grade wing, just that alone, costs at Berry. Do you guys?
Yeah, I think that was in 2 presentations ago, and off the top of my head, I think the renovation interior to Berry is approximately $7.5 million, and I think we're projecting. The remainder of the anticipated cost at Berry to be for addition of a ninth grade wing.
And that would be?
But there's also, you have to take into account that has some ancillary work. It's not just classrooms, it's also increasing and accommodating for those non-instructional spaces as well.
Sean, in terms of the price of the ninth grade wing at Berry, which?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Bottom line is, it's a much more expensive proposition to try to increase capacity at the high school than it is to add the ninth grade wing at Berry.
It's a significant premium at the current high school because of the ripple effects that it has across the campus due to parking and constraints of that site.
Hey, Craig Maynor, this potential Liberty Park High School, $8 million in operational cost annually and $4 million in debt service, is that right? $12 million in addition?
And the debt service, that is estimate. I kind of talked to Matt about it, not knowing what rates are going to be, but yes, we would have to go out and borrow that. So it would be, about, for $60+ million borrowed, somewhere around $4 million a year for debt service, possibly more depending on what the rates are going to be. $8 million is just based upon cost we currently have now at a 2,000 student high school, and looking at half the size of the facility, and that does factor in heating, air, maintenance, personnel cost, custodial services, and it is an estimate.
But that doesn't include land, right?
No,
so this $12 million in debt service would...
Yeah, that's if we're given, 40 nice acres to build it on. So.
Given, okay. All right.
Do you feel that these recommendations and moving to this model across the schools, will it provide enough wiggle room to account for any margin of error that might occur with the numbers?
It certainly would. It certainly would, because we have current space at Liberty Park Middle right now. As far as moving the ninth grade out of the high school, the ability to reconfigure some of the spaces there, such as for the fine arts, the way that space is being utilized right now, it gives us a different way of being able to look at the actual capacity that's within the current high school, which is the main thing, and being able to develop those programs that currently, just because of space constraints, again, those non-traditional instructional spaces, the cafeteria space, the media center space, all of those spaces that are an issue, and we've not really even talked about the carpool traffic and things of that nature, which are secondary to the instructional piece, naturally. But yes, absolutely. It changes the dynamic and even scheduling and the volume of people that we have to serve them makes that much more manageable.
Okay. And you're confident there would be options for getting the ninth graders to all those activities?
Yes, we have talked about that. Now, do we do some creative scheduling? Mm-hmm. Yes, but many school systems do that when their students are at a junior high or they are divided up in different grade level structures and the value that we have in our programs. And yes, we'd have to ensure that we did that. There would be transportation cost involved with that, and we have talked about that previously. We would have to make that happen because it's a commitment, and we're capable of doing that and ensuring that our students make it. Again, we talked about all students coming to Berry. That was met with quite a bit of resistance. If they were all on one campus, that would make the logistics of that a little easier, but a 9-step recommendation, there's nothing easy about that, so it's doing what's right for students, teachers, and the programs that we have, so we'll make it work. As a matter of fact, I'll use Jarrell Horton as an example. He has already thought through that has shared his ideas there with me, and he isn't certain he wants to actually wait until that even happens because he thinks they'll be great for his program. He's making those decisions. We're not telling him how to do that, that's for sure.
How do you see, I'm sure it's an obvious answer to this, but how do you see technology playing into a ninth grade at the Liberty Park Middle and ninth grade at Berry? It'll be integral, I'm assuming, in terms of providing the similar opportunities that ninth graders are receiving at the high school right now.
It is for all things. For instance, I had the question posed to me, what if you have 4 students who want to take Latin? Well, 4 students on one campus wanting to take Latin doesn't constitute a person being in the classroom with them. Well, we're moving into virtual learning. We're moving into distance learning. We have not done much of that. Many schools, not only in our state, but in the Southeast and in the nation, are already doing that. We've never taken advantage of access learning, which is a very popular way of taking courses. Distance learning is something that is happening on all of our college campuses and those kinds of things, and we feel we have a responsibility for making that work. What we're trying not to do, what we don't want to do, if we're going to talk about learning without limits, is tell students any longer, well, we can't create that for you because you're the only one who wants to take Latin in your school. Well, then how do we make that happen? How do we ensure that occurs? So, does that answer your question?
It does, just a minute.
And the technology, we're constantly working on those resources and making sure that we use those resources wisely.
So, Sheila, if I understand, you're not saying no second high school, you're saying no second high school now?
I'm saying we can't afford a second high school now. The numbers have to be there, the money has to be there, and currently, now we could do it and scrap everything else probably, but we're already moving in that direction, and we have to think about the district as a whole. That is why we, in my opinion, have such a monstrosity of a decision to make and moving forward, because so many of our schools have to be tapped into at once to ensure that the quality of the classroom space and the learning space, as we have said many times, matches the excellence that we have. For years we did not talk about a second high school. We would have been silly not to talk about a second high school, in my opinion. I don't think it should be tucked away somewhere. But at the same time, we can't do it all. If we could do it all, Jerry, how about stroking that check? If we could do it all.
Somebody's going to give it to us.
Yeah, there you go. I'll name that high school after whoever gives us that money.
George.
With all the grandkids I got, I may need my own school.
It's been the right thing to do, to talk about it, to plan for it in the future. If it resolved all of these issues to include, we would be silly not to. But we've got to let these things fall into place and do it right so that we can, again, it's about the sustainability in the building program that we have currently, hopefully we'll have in place.
So our plan is to keep an eye on the demographics, and then what else in terms of planning ahead for when those numbers get to a certain point where there is no other option other than to build a second high school?
Then we go down that road. At that point, hopefully we'll be able to look at our finances differently. Matt and Greg, feel free to help me with this discussion, but I would hope that given, being frugal about what we're doing, it's why program management is key in this and helping us keep costs down as much as possible while getting the quality of product that we want. I use the term hope as if, I'm just wishing on a star. That is not it at all. You plan for that and you think about that. You keep it on the radar for discussion, knowing that it can't happen right now. But if the trends in enrollment continue in the manner that they are, then you begin planning for that as quickly as you can. It appears that discussion is probably 5 years out as far as the discussion yet again and being able to move, just simply because I'm going to use I don't mean to be so informal, but it's why we just maxed out a bond issue. We got as much as we could to maintain a healthy debt service that we can all be comfortable with. And until we move beyond that and get these things in place and move them forward, we can't pile on more debt service. But we certainly can plan for that as we move forward.
Do we have any more borrowing capacity to maintain our rating?
No.
Okay. That's a simple answer.
There's not much there. The thing I would say is most systems hope that there's some inflationary growth of tax revenues, and we issued a fixed rate bond issue, which is going to be flat. And so as there's some inflationary growth of tax revenues, and as just in general property growth grows, it allows for additional debt capacity from things like additional development in the city, the inflationary growth of property values in general. You hope that that leaves you a nice gap to be able to do this project somewhere out there, as well as additional development in Liberty.
But after having just gone through what we did with securing the bond issue that we did, the important thing is to build a reserve, keep it up, be able to show that we are fiscally sound, and at some point down the road, we may not have to borrow the entire amount needed, and that would put us in a more favorable position. If we have a very strong fund balance, and we do have a $60 million, $70 million project, whatever it is at the time, if we could fund 25% of it ourselves while still having a healthy legal reserve, that at that point it would be doable.
Which is what we're doing in this program, where we've got the bond money plus another 15 million from the reserve, which is a testimony, and I'm very thankful for over the years, the stewardship, Greg, people well before us who were able to do that. We know that there are systems right next door to us who would not be able to contribute $14 million to a capital project like we're talking about here. And so, Greg, what you're saying, I think, in answer to Jerry, is that we're going to need time to build that reserve back up, because once we spend this $14 million, we'll be down to a 2-month reserve, essentially.
Approximately, yes.
Yeah. But again, and I would suggest, when I would say us collectively, because I think the partnership between the school system and the city leadership is important. There is a fine balance, and it works together in economic development and growth, development of homes and residential set, because that feeds our ad valorem, and then the school system being one of the selling points for drawing people to the community. There's been some criticism, if you will, of allowing annexations in and development of new properties. At the same time, yes, do we expect our city leaders to be very careful about that, but we all understand, and we have talked about this for years now, about the importance of, you can't just put a lid on it, because it works together. That these two entities have to work together, because we benefit from that as they do from the school system and it being a draw for people coming. So it's a fine balance in that, and at that point we are hopeful that with the Jefferson County sales tax, which is going to give us about $1.2 million additional annually, which we hope will begin to see the fruits of that in 2018 or so. We are hopeful for that. And then increased ad valorem that is coming through, that is allowing us, even with all that we have going on, to be able to add to our reserve. Those are key pieces, and to be in this position is
I agree with that, favorable. But our expense side moves up every year too, and that's out of our control, salaries and benefits to the state, and that's something that we have no say over.
That's correct.
So we can't count on organic growth or inflationary growth for $12 million a year if we know we're going to have some expenses that are to be offset. So in my way of thinking, I'll say it because I've talked with Kimberly, I've talked with George, is there may need a time may come soon where we have to have a discussion about increased revenue to help offset some of this projected debt service. In other words, tax income for us. So we've talked about it. I mean, it's just a reality of the situation when you're trying to come up with $12 million a year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no quick way we could enter into doing a second high school with what our funding is and with having 4 times coverage pledged on the debt service right now out of existing streams of ad valorem. So
I didn't mean to toss you under the bus. They've been very open to having these discussions. So, yeah. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that in the room, out in the rest of Vestavia Hills watching the
You
video.
and I have talked about it, and you and George have talked about it, but the council has not talked about it.
Correct.
Just to be clear.
And I have talked about it with city management.
So the conversations have started. We need to continue that.
That's correct.
If the demographic projections continue and this becomes.
There could be some opportunities out there we're all looking at, whether it's with our community spaces program. We've got to finance that somehow at some point, like the city of Hoover has done, like Homewood has done. They increase their sales tax, for example. They paid the debt, and they'll, there's different ways of doing it, but we understand it's got to go hand in hand between the two. That's right. None of us have enough money to do what we want to do.
Right. Unfortunately.
And George, that's a great point. Is you think about that as we've tried to weigh with professional help the options, and I talked about that with a couple folks this afternoon, that as much as we would love to have had a perfect solution where only pros on the chart and no cons, there's no such thing, because of there is a limited amount of money, there's a limited amount of space, there's just a limited amount of resources in general for us to do that. And again, there's going to be pros and cons with any decision like this. But I'm thankful that we have had such conservative financial stewardship over the years, that we did have such great ratings from the bond issue in the fall, that we were able to purchase Berry after a decade's worth of effort. Probably, Mr. Boone, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where the city council and the school board trying to work together to bring Berry online and to do it at the price we were able to do it, versus, Sean, I know you've estimated before, and Greg, you have too, to build a building like we have at Berry on 40 acres with the athletic facilities. That would be, and as opposed to being 11 million, which is what we purchased it for, it's 4 times or 5 times that, I guess. One quick question about Liberty Park Middle. If the 9th grade stays there, there's not any substantial, or maybe any, renovation that needs to be done at Liberty Park Middle to have the 9th grade stay in 2009, beginning in 2019?
No significant.
Okay. And with regard to, Sheila, your recommendation about at least planning for K through 5, but in fall of 2019, moving 4, 5 to Pizzitz, if in 2020 or 2022, if it's determined that with this additional information from cooperative strategies that we need to go to K5 at Pizzitz, the refurbishment of Pizzitz from 4-5 to K5 financially is, I think it's maybe on one of the charts, but do you guys remember how much that would?
It's very minor. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but any renovation work that needs to be done at Pizzitz currently, regardless of grade structure, it's planned to accommodate any alignment that we would put there.
Okay, great. So,
Sean, would you add anything else to that?
The only difference there is grade structure and who's on one level, K through 2 on main level,
right.
Upper grades, but that's really the only difference. The only thing we've talked about there is renovation of hallways, some walls and some of those things, toilet rooms, and some various, but other than that, schools in good shape.
And one other point I'd like to make before we move on, there has been quite a bit of talk about if we if you agree to move 9th grade from the high school, students at Liberty Park remain at Liberty Park and at Berry, on the Berry campus, or at Liberty Park, how do you ensure that there's not overlap of 6th grade and 9th grade? We have talked about, and it is actually designed, Liberty Park is actually designed to have a separate office area. Barry actually had 2 entrances, 2 office spaces to offset. We have talked about even separate carpool lines, if you will, to ensure that the intent is not to mix and dump all into one school, 6th through 9th graders passing one another. Currently, our schools have 6th grade wings, 7th grade wings, 8th grade wings. At the high school, they're everywhere. I mean, just because of the capacity and how full they are. But we know how to design and structure where classes are placed. Our school building leadership know how to do that to ensure we won't have 9th graders influencing our 6th graders. And I certainly understand that concern, and I'm sensitive to it. But we have talked about how to ensure that there are actually 2 different wings, particularly because we value so much the middle school concept and model and the way that you structure their schedules in the day in pods, if you will, or in teams, and what it would mean to shift to a junior high model where the focus is indeed more on the academics and the rigor of coursework that students would have.
Mr. Boone, you don't see any legal restrictions on making these types of moves, do you?
No, sir.
And just to hear from the professionals, you all have been through this process with us, Sean, Greg. You see Sheila's recommendation. What are your recommendations? What are your thoughts?
So, we've worked with school systems throughout the state for 20 years now. Personally, I've worked with quite a few. Every school system, every program is unique to the community that it's involved with and it's tied to. The process that we went through, starting with listening to the community, gathering the data, synthesizing that information to get to where we are today, is the only approach that Vestavia could have taken. To pull that together in a closed environment would have been very counterproductive. I think this has been one of the most open processes I've been a part of as a professional. I think it has addressed, from a financial and a building program, as many needs as potentially possible without limiting future opportunities.
Thank you. Sean? What?
I would echo that. I mean, we've explored, as everyone knows, so many options and different ways of looking at things. What can we do at the high school? And I think we've explored we've turned over every stone, as she would say. So I think it's been a good process for us as a great team.
Mr. Boone, you've seen more processes that boards of education have used than anybody. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are these, that in my opinion, our board has engaged the finest, best professional experts to advise us. I don't think you could get better help than Rick Lathan and Sean Calma, Greg Hess and Brennan Bell, Matt Adams over here financing, and the demographics from Cooperative Systems to lead us and give us the information that we need in order to make a good decision. In planning and finance, construction, design, what we really need. And I'm aging myself, but I have seen us go from 0 schools to 9 schools. And I have personally been involved in either the acquisition, the improvement, or the construction, or the development of every one of our campuses, and I'm proud of that. I've actually lived long enough to see us grow from a city of 607 people to 34,000. I've seen our first graduating class of 28 students grow to over 7,100. And our general fund budget has grown to over 68 million. We have over 900 employees. And don't forget this man right here, Greg Maynard, can tell you where every dollar is and every single thing that you want to know about the finances of this board. I applaud you. Tila Stewart's been through some of that too as a former member of our board, but I think the process has been terrific.
Any other questions? Ms. Pierce, yes.
If you don't mind, I'm not a professional, but just as a member of the city council,
Yes.
just to relate to you. First, the city council has not really been involved directly with your planning. I haven't really been asked my thought on it, but as a citizen, I have been involved, and I've done a couple of surveys. I did the Best State Voice survey twice. But I'm glad Phillips mentioned.
So we shouldn't rely on it if you vote twice.
And Facebook and everything else.
How many times did you vote for the president?
That's for me to know and him to think about it. But as a member of city council, I think it's only fair to let you know that whether it be while I'm walking through the meat market at Publix or social media, I've had an awful lot of parents, both parents and parents of grandparents of children at school, voicing concerns about the 6 through 9 mix. I believe Dr. Phillips mentioned they won't be in the same area, but that has been, if I had $1 for every time I'd asked, I wouldn't be here tonight. But that's been an overriding concern. There's no perfect way to do this, but the 6th grader versus the 9th grader, from grandparents to parents, they're really concerned about that. And I hope that's an area that really has to be addressed to keep those two separate. I hate we can't do something in the high school. I wish I had $50 million to give you, but I don't. I've already spent my first 50 and we're working on a second, I think. But I need to let you know that has been a #1 concern from parents, stakeholders, the mixing of 6th and 9th graders and getting 9th graders, example, from Liberty Park to the high school, athletics, whatever extracurricular, without interfering with their other class time.
I agree.
Yep.
I would agree.
And do know that we have also heard from many of those same people, and that Kimberly keeps us well informed of the thoughts of the council.
So that's a good segue into, and we may have additional questions, but opening it up for, I'm sorry.
Can I think I need to do the additional issues to consider to make certain.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lastly, I would just say beyond the recommendation is that I would encourage the development of academy programs as curricular and academic opportunities. We do not need to lose sight of the teaching and learning piece of this. It is our future. We talk about global learning. We talk about learning without limits, and that is where we take instructional practices to another level. Converting the top floor of the central office to classrooms to provide immediate relief for Vestavia Hills West. Plan for moving central office to an alternate location to allow for space to be used for the West Campus. Continue consideration of possible uses of the central campus once it's vacated. Give consideration to the BOE leading a legacy campaign to secure funds to supplement fiscal resources. That is something I have mentioned before many times. Continue discussions with the City Council to find new streams of revenue in order to develop additional school properties as student enrollment increases true to predicted figures. Jerry, that speaks to what you were suggesting earlier. Explore the potential for use of access facilities pending the final purchase of Gold's Gym. We have talked about that publicly. And then consider the operational and the management decisions, such as ensuring for parents that 6th graders are not mixed with 9th graders and that transportation is not cutting into the schedule of a student's day unnecessarily, but making sure that we plan. It goes back to the alignment of all of these resources, discussion, if you will. That is our responsibility, and we can worry about that, but the proof has to be in the pudding from us as far as those issues are concerned, and we will be forthcoming in what we are talking about and how we are planning schedules, and all personnel decisions have to be made, but all of those operational and management decisions, yes, they have to be taken into careful consideration and how you design those.
Sheila, if I could speak as the senior member of the City Council.
The Godfather, I think you said. I think you said the Godfather.
We're all in this together. We want to help you have it work. We've all got projects we're working on. We've got to do them together. We know all citizens won't be happy, but we're here to do every we can to make this happen. The main goal is educating our students. If we don't educate our students well, our property values go down, and all our revenues in the city drop off, and businesses quit looking to come to our city. So we're here to help you any way we can, in any means, whether you need to come to city council meetings and make statements wherever it's necessary, please do so.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And you amen to what you just said. And again, kind of thinking about how thankful I am to have raised, you've raised many more with kids and grandkids, but my 3 kids to have gone through this system, teachers and administrators that have made such an impact on their lives. And I know I speak for so many folks who the quality of education, both heart and head, in our system is second to none, as we talk about in these meetings over the last year, as we look at measurables, we look at the intangibles, that these kinds of changes, if there's any group of people who can make these work in a way that continue to educate our kids in the way that is top in the state, it's the administrators and it's the teachers and the staff that are in our 8 schools right now and soon to be 9, in my opinion. So let's open it up to the public. If anyone has any questions, again, 3 minutes, and if you would just stand and tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Casey Odell.
Yes, ma'am.
I really just kind of want some clarification on the 2019 plan with the elementary school, specifically East and West. So are you saying that in the fall of 2019, the third grades, the third graders coming from East and West will all move as they have to Central to Zitz, or are you saying that there will be a K through 5 at Zitz?
The plan is to be a K through 5 at Zitz. However, we want to finish one more layer of this demographic study before we officially move in that direction.
Right. I know in previous, I had heard, I know you had discussed grandfathering in as a possibility. So I'm trying to get a picture in my head of, for let's take that third grade of East and West. How many of the kids are going to have options? Let's say that someone's at West, they get rezoned Central. So let's say you've got a second grader at West, and they do the rezonings next year, and that student's going to be rezoned Central. So is that student going to have the option then to stay at West through 5th grade, or are they going to need to move to Central at 4th grade? I'm sorry.
Okay, that is part of the study. That has to be part of the study. Is there a way? And as soon as I said that word, I knew what I was opening up there. What my intent and what I said as well is we have to be sensitive to how people feel about their local school. And if there is a way to have what I would say, rather than grandfathering, a happy medium that allows us to, at some point you have to draw the line and the students have to move on. That is why we want to move into a contract with Cooperative Strategies, because they can help us with how do you do that and make it most effective. If you grandfather everybody who wants to stay in their school, such as at East, which is, I've heard from many parents who have said to me, I would love for my children to stay in that school for 2 more years. And they've said that about every one of them. I'd rather them stay for 2 more years. The transition times are fewer, but you cannot grandfather children and then think you're going to have movement at the same time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the capacity that you need, and you would never move children on. So I say that word not as a everybody can determine, such as school choice, if you will, where you will go, but saying that we have to be sensitive. And if there's a way, any way, to phase in a grade level or what have you, but I'm not the expert on making sure that happens. That is why we want the study to be done first. So I don't have that mapped out for you, but entering into the contract with Cooperative Strategies will help us develop that plan. I'm not suggesting that we're going to have school choice and that if they want to stay. Pardon me?
Any possible kind of timeline on that?
They are telling us that we can begin that conversation immediately. My hope is, if I say a year, that seems very far out to us. We need to do that sooner, but we've got to get it, first of all, we've got to get approval, and then we've got to move into that.
Rezonings by this time next year.
Oh, I would certainly think we'll be far done with that at that point in the
fall of 2019.
We have to in order to plan for that transition. It has to happen sooner than later.
Okay.
But until we begin that conversation with them and they map that out for us, I do not know that.
Okay.
But that certainly will be shared because I understand the concerns.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I'm Courtney Morehouse. Could you explain to me or to all of us, sort of educate me about when you have this discussion with cooperative strategies about whether or not to rezone, whether or not to go K-5 opposites, how is that process going to work? How is it going to look to all of us sitting at home, looking at Twitter, looking at the newspaper, trying to figure out when we're supposed to come, voice our opinions, when we're going to see a map? I've been asking for maps. Apparently no maps.
Well, there aren't any because we haven't entered into it yet.
Right. So when are the lines going to be drawn? I mean, for me, it's exciting that we've made a decision that we are potentially moving forward. So I'm happy about that. But now, the details are going to be important. So how is that going to look, and when do we get an opinion on this? Do we see our neighborhood go in one way? Are we going to get to it on that?
Okay. Again, we will know the process as soon as they tell us what that process should look like, because they're the experts on doing that. That is why we are hopeful to engage them pending the vote of my recommendation that we indeed do that. But just as every other process that we have had, I would say, we have put that out there to everyone, and we have given opportunities for people to voice their opinion pretty much in every process that we have done. Somebody might argue that they didn't get to give it enough, I don't know. But we certainly have plenty of venues in which people have been sharing their opinions about what that is. That is why I want it done on the front end, so that you do have that information that you are seeking prior to actually implementing.
Compared to Hoover.
Who said, we're rezoning, here it is, let's go. We want the rezone and then be able to give consideration to, okay, what is that going to mean? I mean, I've said many times, you can't do these things without being disruptive. You can't make decisions as we are right now without being disruptive. But minimizing the disruption and being sensitive to where parents have bought their homes intentionally for their children to be in that feeder pattern, we have to. So I can't give you timelines, maps, how that's going to look. All I can say is we have been communicating as much as possible, getting input as much as possible, and there are mechanisms for doing that even in this plan of engaging with cooperative strategies. And as soon as we can sit down with them to do that, we will do so. And we'll communicate what that process looks like based on what they tell us.
We'll get a contract maybe in the next month at the next board meeting. Is that the plan?
I think they felt that they could get that to us
And then
very
maybe we
quickly.
can
Did
get
they
Tracy
not?
to come in when you guys get the terms worked out and explain the process to the public.
Yeah, if the recommendation holds and the process moves forward, I would recommend that we bring Tracy back to the next available board meeting so that he can help make a public presentation to walk everyone through how this would go. And if we need to tailor the terms of his service to better accommodate our needs as a community and as a system, we can certainly do that. But I would like to bring Tracy in, or suggest that we bring Tracy back and his experts in zoning and realignment studies to help walk and make it, show some case studies, show some examples, and then lay out a specific plan for how he would suggest to approach this.
So right now, there's no current neighborhoods on a list?
Like Altadena over here, Rocky Ridge area?
It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. We don't have that information.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm Catherine Taylor. I have two questions. One is short. I'll start with the longer one, which just made me think. The way I understood what he had to say was they have all the GPS information as to where the houses are compared in proximity to the schools. So as far as voting for that, it seemed like to to me a black or white situation where there might be some exceptions. However, the ideal is to have your child at the closest school. They're all hired by the same people, etc. My question is, will it be like that? I mean, will the zoning be like we have zoned? We have seen that these are the homes closest to these schools then? Or will it be like mass chaos and people get to be have opinions? I mean, well, they can have opinions anyway, but
and it can be mass chaos anyway.
Is it going to be a firm decision, or is it going to be one of those where we just kind of like, well, you know, we might do this, we might do that?
Well, I would hope we've not done, we might do this, we might do that. We are taking the guidance that we are going to be given from the experts, and we are going to as succinctly and effectively and efficiently map out a process with their guidance, which we are not experts in doing, and make sure that we're as methodical as we can. Again, at some point, the decision absolutely needs to be made about what the recommendation is. We are known for, absolutely. But we know that the information that we receive and the input that we receive from all of our stakeholders is key. You have to be sensitive to that, is the way I put it every single time we talk about it. At the same time, decisions will have to be made based on what the information tells us and what the expertise of the experts tell us we need to do as far as the process. Again, it's not something that we are just going to say, hey, let's go do this. It's why we've engaged the experts in it. Otherwise, we could just go out and say, well, we like that. This looks like, you know, this looks like there's 5 fingers in this area. Let's clean that up and move this road over. We wouldn't do that. So, but getting the input, one way or the other, is important to be sensitive to the needs of our community. And we'd be silly not to do that.
You had one other question?
I guess the small part of my question is, as positions. The land was donated, so it has to be called positions. I think they donated the high school land to them, I'm not positive. But Berry, will it have to be called Berry?
We'll get there.
We will get there. We will get there. The names of our facilities and what we can and cannot do. What I will say we committed to doing as soon as we purchased that property was in one way memorializing the Finley name in one way or another on that campus. The mural was, and because we have just in some way, in some capacity, I'm not suggesting again that it's on the front of the building, I don't know, but because we value our neighbors and because they worked with us on that facility, again, that there was a commitment early on. But as far as naming that, you know, we have been studying, are there any restrictions on the way our various campuses are used? What can we, what can't we? And Mr. Boone has been studying that for us as well as we make these decisions, because it matters. It matters. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I can see that you want to align the elementary schools. My concerns are with the elementary schools, especially on this side of Vestavia. I'd like to see a K through 2 put at East and West and have 3 through 6 at the ZITs. 3rd graders and 6th graders aren't going to be that big of a drastic age difference, say a 3rd grader and a 7th grader or whatever. 7 through 9 at Berry, 10 through 12. I'd like to see another school. I thought I'd never say it, but I'd like to see another school built out at Liberty Park. You say we don't have funds. I can understand that. What about the foundation? I know y'all have nothing to do with the foundation, but I know my husband and I both gave a good bit of money when each of our children started at Vestavia. I went to Vestavia was Vestavia Elementary, and I was in a Butler building for 4th and 5th grade through 1974 and 5 maybe. Anyway, I can see, you know, how changes have to be, you know, be done. But I wonder, you know, does the foundation, I know we use the money on the interest from the foundation to help with our needs in the school.
Yes, ma'am.
But what do we do? I mean,
I know just the amount that our family gave, and if each family gave a little bit of money towards the foundation, there's got to be quite a nest egg build-up, I would think.
Yes, yes,
Could we
ma'am.
not use any foundation money to help with some of our school expenses and so forth? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to cause a problem. I'm just curious.
No, yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Just two quick responses. One about the foundation. The foundation, and Sheila can correct me, it's not anywhere close to that. Those kinds of funds. One, although very much appreciated for all the foundation does, and I agree with you. The more of us who contribute to the foundation, the better off the foundation would be. And then secondly, the purpose of the foundation funds typically over the years has been professional development, meeting some technology needs over the providing grants to the schools in a much smaller amount than anything we're talking about here. And then the second point, kind of when you mentioned third, fourth, fifth, third through sixth. Greg, you can speak to that about the ability of Pizitz to be able to hold that many kids. I don't think it can. It can. Yeah, it's.
I just thought that would alleviate some of the pressure off East and West because they are packed to the gills. Central is. I'd like to see the board move to Central eventually. I think that'd be a great place for the board. And then West could expand perhaps over into this area.
Marcel, that's what she had on that next slide.
Oh, okay.
For considerations is moving the central office, giving West. See that second bullet and the third bullet.
I mean, that would be great, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand there's a problem maybe with city land being part of city owning part of the land that the board doesn't own, or
Let's yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let's move to the next question. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christine Osborne. At Berry, you mentioned that they'd be 6th and 7th and 8th, 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th. So would they be two separate schools, or would their assemblies be together? Would their, I mean, do they have one mascot for a team? How does that work with 9th graders that are on a JV team? So they're the Rebels, but yet they're at Liberty Park, and they're also the. How does that work?
It worked very similarly to how Liberty Park Elementary and the middle school work. They are on one campus, but they don't come together for most things unless it is a middle school. The middle school choir goes to do a production for the elementary students, and because the models of learning would be very different, and the schedule itself most likely will not be identical between 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 within a school day, just because they operate with teams and pods. Now, there may be an instance where we might find that for instance, PTO, would we come together and work in that way rather than having two separate? But again, those are some of the operational and management pieces. I'm not suggesting that there might not ever be a reason for students to come together, but I'm not worried about the mascot today at all. I'm not going down that road today.
That's what I meant, separate school.
It's one at a time.
So it will be a common school, but they will operate. One is a middle, one is a junior.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have one
Yes.
real quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
In the matrix that showed student enrollment that was provided by Cooperative Strategies, it was mentioned that 17 years might be the amount of time required to get to that number. The number that's in the far bottom, to the furthest right, that ultimate number, that is like the
400.
maximum, isn't it? Is that true?
The 8,400?
I mean, projected maximum. But if we build out everything in Liberty Park that's known, is that maximum number, or is that not?
Did they use the medium level on that one?
Recommended.
Ms. Cook, make sure I understand which number you're referring to.
Is it the 84? The 8,400?
The far bottom right number.
I just want to make sure I understand.
In 10 years, that number.
Yeah.
Is that the projected max if we don't annex any more land, if we don't zone any more residential housing? Is that the maximum number that is projected?
You're not talking about this slide.
No,
You're talking
no.
about the trends.
Okay.
I'm going to go back.
That 8415, 10 years out, is that if we build everything, the subdivision yield analysis showed that we build everything currently zoned, we've currently annexed without adding anything additional, should that be projected the maximum number?
Okay, so to make sure, and I just want to make sure that I understand the question completely. So there is a total plan development that's previously approved that is there for a build-out. The 17 years projected build-out for that is based on looking at the building permits.
The average.
Correct. So the average building permit, and I don't know the number exactly off the top of my head, but right now is hovering in the 100 building permits a year in that area,
So my question
125
is
maybe.
that number at the far bottom right,
Yep.
is that 10 years into a 17-year maximum, or is it the maximum? What is that?
It's not the maximum.
Oh, okay.
So if, and Brennan, feel free to correct me if I misstate here, but when the 17-year build-out is complete, or that could be 25 years depending on building permits, it would add additional students in the Liberty Park area over and above what's being projected here.
Okay. Do we have that number, that 7 years beyond the 10? Have we been?
I think that's what Tracy was trying to speak to at his last meeting.
I don't have anything
is-
beyond what you have.
Didn't quite understand.
Yeah, and that's what Tracy is talking about in part of his recommendation of following up and continuing to monitor the growth, looking at the building permits and how those are being moved forward year over year over year, so that if that trend grows, we now have the ability to go back and have a different discussion.
So
But right now, potential, yes, but right now, the potential growth based on building permits, they would have to nearly double.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right. Any questions or comments from anybody up here? Okay, well, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the recommendation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And let me just say to folks, thank you all, and thank you all as well. The kind words that folks have shared with us about the process, even going so far as to say that they're praying for us, we really appreciate. I can't thank you enough for that. There's a long list of things people could be praying for, and folks in our community do pray for very significant things in each other's lives, and it's a privilege to be in a community like that. But to hear folks, when you're walking through Publix or at the soccer field, and they say, we're praying for you about that decision, it's greatly appreciated. So thank you all for that. And now we go back.
You have to vote.
I have to vote as well.
Well, you all have to, you did the recommendation, but did you actually vote?
They voted.
You voted. Okay, good. I just want to make sure we didn't miss that step. I don't want to miss that step. I don't want to have to come back to it. Making sure.
You want us to perform a George and vote twice?
I do not. I just want to make sure. So you got a recorded, Pat, and we're good to move on. Okay, very good. Well, then,
We voted.
We voted. 4 times.
Ms. Boggs, we voted. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Then I'm going to move on to the rest of our business. Item 8, personnel. I recommend that the board approve the following personnel actions: retirements, resignations, a leave of absence, 1 supplement, and employments, please.
You've heard Dr. Phillips' recommendation concerning these personnel items. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let me say one other thing, by the way, and I apologize for not saying this at the beginning. David Powell is on a Pazitz trip chaperoning. He would have been here, obviously, for this significant meeting.
Sure.
And I should have said that at the beginning, and I apologize. David would really, compared to chaperoning, he probably would like to be here, possibly. But he's very kind in chaperoning the Pazitz trip, and I just wanted to mention that. I'm sorry, Sheila.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I will go very quickly through my superintendent's updates, and then I can give you additional information as you need it at another time. As you probably are aware, and I mentioned to you already this week, that the U.S. News and World Report and the Washington Post did their annual rankings. I have explained many times about rankings that they are based on different formulas. We have had discussions at the high school every year, multiple times a year for the most part, about what we want in our programs. It's hard to argue with a group of teachers when they are greatly concerned about the quality of instruction and the scores that our students receive, let's say on AP exams, versus just making sure that the enrollment process for AP level courses, I'm using that as an example, is just opened up to anyone based on interest. So my point is, there is continuing dialogue about that, as evidenced today and even in this room this evening. A ranking is, again, a formula that someone came up, I would argue sometimes, because they don't have other things to do besides develop rankings. We place value on some more than others. However, it is not that you don't pay attention to them, because they are significant. But I will give you an example. U.S. News and World Report came out. As you all know, which is a second point, our State Department has had quite the mess with graduation rates and the calculations of, and with our test scores. And therefore, some of those scores that were reported naturally by the state are not going to be reflected in these reports as they are published. And those are some things that people do not take into account. You always pay attention to the rankings as an educational organization, just because you just want to know where are people following you for whatever the reasons are. But again, the quality of the learning that is happening in our classrooms is based on what we know needs to occur, based on the standards that have been set, the assessments and the expectations that we have for teaching and learning in Vestavia Hills City Schools. I'll say it one more time. You pay attention to them because you want to know what people are saying and how you are being ranked. But even in light of these, it is very easy, such as with the State Department, to get those percentages wrong, which means they're not reflected in those surveys at the time of publish, because they don't take into account state by state by state and how those fall. The number of AP tests that we have gone from giving over nearly 500 AP tests to how many did we give this year, Tyler? I'm sorry.
1,026.
1,026.
466 students.
And how many different
ever,
tests?
Right, Ms. Dressback, isn't that the most ever?
Oh, yes.
By far.
Yes.
By far. We've increased those numbers year after year. They take into account demographics. Those vary from school system to school system and state to state. Our graduation rate is very high. How we are ranked according to the level of 4 and 5s, I will use AP exams again, is incredibly high, so high that they didn't even report it. They gave us a squiggly in that report if you read it on AL.com, and I had to say, why is there? Well, because you're above 95%. So we know it's getting done. I always urge anyone who looks at these rankings to care about what they say, but with a grain of salt, because clearly it's getting done, and it's getting done well. And our teachers and our local school administrators are working very hard to make sure that the excellence is always increasing, no matter how somebody wants to report them or skew the statistics.
Sheila, just one more observation on that. A couple of years ago, we were not ranked, and I'm not going to say by which entity, and it's because our response got tied up in their spam filter along with many, many other schools. And so when they went to correct that, it was too late because everything had run. And we learned a lot about the process back then, because everyone does have their own formula, and they're all very different. I don't know how much weight I put in them. It's important to be ranked, don't get me wrong. Would I love to be one every time? Absolutely. But we did put out the most national merit finalists, semifinalists this year in the state of Alabama, again. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that sort of contradict some of these rankings.
That's correct.
I just wouldn't get too obsessed with
Correct.
them.
I'm actually the one, and I don't mind saying the Washington Post, because I'm the one who had to track it down. I called and I said to the author of that ranking, I said, Vestavia Hills wasn't included. How could we not be included? Oh, well, we must not have gotten your results. Well, do you understand the conversation that would happen in a community like ours because our results are not in there? Well, if you'll send them to me, I'll fix it. Within 24 hours, I had sent the information, and we had bumped people down, and we were number 8 according to that. But everybody else, but right, that's correct. So again, you're right. It's just you have to put it in perspective. Again, as you know, the State Department has had a problem with reporting the graduation rate and the college and career ready scores. We have vetted ours. Ours was wrong. Our graduation rate. They had us going from, 97 or 96 to 90. That is inaccurate. We will have an opportunity to go in there and help them fix that. They had our numbers not reported properly in a couple of areas, and then the same thing with the college ready. I had to pick up the phone and say why. We were told that we would have an opportunity. Many of you may have seen the memo, but we were told that we would have an opportunity to go in there and verify the data that they had in there. That did not occur. That's the reason that I am certain that we can have a long board meeting, but they had a really long work session today to discuss how are they going to fix this. So just so you are aware. We are looking at ARI funding, our reading instructional coaches. That is something that is in Montgomery that is being tampered with. We actually dealt with this a bit at the end of last school year, or right before school started, not even at the end of the school year. They pulled that rug out from under us. Right before school began, they reinstated the money, but this year we're looking at $4 million to be reappropriated to other school systems who don't have the resources that we have. But at the same time, we are committed to protecting the work that our instructional coaches do at our schools and where they are. But it may mean certainly some shift. Well, it's likely that it will require some shifts in the way we approach our reading and instructional coaches throughout the district while maintaining the level of support that they are able to give to our schools. Our next board meeting is scheduled for May 17th. I need to also talk with you about the June meeting. Our regular June meeting is June the 28th, but I need to know if you all can have a meeting on June the 12th, either in the morning, noon, or in the evening. This is a personnel issue, and we also have a contractual issue. Is it with West? Help me. With West. That will be ready to be approved. And if we wait until the 28th with personnel, again, that timeline is getting short for us in preparation for next school year at that point, as well as moving forward with future renovation to West cafeteria project, kitchen cafeteria project. So if you'll look at your calendars, June 12th, Pat will reach back out to you and let you know, yes. You don't have to get out your calendar. Just saying. I'm surprised you didn't say that. That's the grin. That's the one. But Pat will reach back out with you all to make sure that works. We're also planning on getting AASB to come in and do training in early June with you all, as you are aware, and we'll get that nailed down. We the People are back within the top 10. Tyler, have we given an official place? Eighth. So proud of them, and yet again they're competing at the national level. Successful Relay for Life. My goodness, the work that went into this weekend. What a joy to be a part of that for all of us for many reasons. Back to testing. We're finishing testing this week in all areas, and we'll be glad to have this behind us. And then lastly, the advanced ed surveys are open for input, and they are school specific, and we are, as we have annually, and it gives us information from our stakeholders immediately so that our administrators can turn around in early June when we meet with one another to look at the results of those and what it might mean for school improvement planning purposes for the following year. So we are appreciative of that, and those close on May 5th. I have no idea what else I'm forgetting or missing.
Okay. Do we need to, have we recognized our replacement for Mr. Hogway?
I think he did.
Did we vote? George?
We did.
Oh, how many times?
You did, 5 times.
I like him so much I had to mention it.
So now's the time in the meeting where we open it up for public comment. If you have public comment of anything other than facilities.
Please.
Any comment? Yes, Mr. Pierce.
I'd just like to recognize, I think most of y'all know the trade association I represent established an Academy of Craft Training last year. We teach 5 basics in welding, masonry, construct carpentry, HVAC, unless there's one more. We do 5, electrical, yes, 5 of them. Last year we probably had 4 students from Vestavia Hills. They came to every morning and attended the classes. Most of them be graduating when the high school graduates. We had interviews for next year. Right now, I think, Mike, I think we've got
it's 14.
Yeah, 14 attending, and we're thrilled to have. We worked with Mike, Deanna Goodwin, and those people. We're just glad that we're offering alternative kids. They can learn a good craft training, a good skill. They'll get them out the workforce, an opportunity to make a good living. But I'm thrilled to have 14 this coming year.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other?
I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't talk to you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And this is commenting on the facilities decision. First, I want to thank you guys for making this hard decision. I know that this was a hard one, and it's like I was talking to Mark about it, and sometimes you have ones that you never have decisions that have all pros, and this was a tough one. And I felt like the decision was made thoughtfully. I felt like you guys went to the right folks to get the right data. You had the information you needed to make the decision, and you dug under every rock to get all the options that were out there. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And second, I wanted to thank you for sharing information so well about it and for asking for input. I know that you get tired of hearing the word transparency, and I'm actually starting to get a little tired of it myself, but I just wanted to say that our school system is a lot more transparent than any other school system that I'm aware of in our area. And I've looked. I've been to their websites and I've checked, and I'm not going to name names because I teach Sunday school with Bill Cleveland, but you won't find, you will not find minutes, agendas, reports, information, slideshows that are shared in meetings. You don't find that in other school systems. They just don't give it out. People don't know what's going on. And I know that generates a lot of extra emails to you guys and phone calls and people stopping you in the grocery store. And but we appreciate it. We really do. So wanted to say that. And
thank you.
Third, I wasn't expecting to get the decision that was going to make me completely happy, because I don't think there is one. I mean, truthfully, I just don't think there is one. But the decision that was made tonight, I just wanted to let you know that we are behind you. Obviously, I didn't get everything I wanted or hoped that I would get from my perspective. But going forward, the decision's been made. I feel like it's Christmas. I feel like, we've made the decision finally. So I feel good about that. I hope that you know that the city is behind you. I will speak for the city in that regard. The city is behind the school system. We want what is best for our students. We want, and I know that you do too. One of the things that I would urge you going forward is to continue to, to keep that academic excellence at the forefront, and I know that you will. That almost goes without saying. The other thing that was spoken to tonight in talking about the option is the equity across the school system and the alignment, and I know that Sheila has spoken to that. In the discussions we had in the fall about Liberty Park alignment, I was satisfied. I felt like that the words were backed up by actions, and I think that we can expect better alignment between Liberty Park and Bazitz, or whatever it's going to be called in the future. And so I have hope that, for this new alignment, that we will also have that same equity, but that's going to be really important, and I know that you know that, but I just wanted to say it out loud, especially for that 9th grade class, because that's such an important year for our students. So, but thank you again, and you've already recognized Steve Bendall. I just wanted to say that that we were pleased to appoint him Monday night at our marathon 3.5-hour meeting. That Nancy and Lisa stayed for the entire meeting. Bless them. But we're very happy to have Steve, and I know that you will welcome him. And he's looking forward to working with you collaboratively. And with Steve's history of service to our city and his love for our schools and his love for our city, I know that's going to be great. So just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done.
Kimberly, thank you. Those are very kind words and much appreciated. Thank you. Any others? Okay. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Cindy.